Okay, today we're talking about Mary Louise Pratt and her theory of contact zones. So Pratt defines a contact zone as an area in which two or more cultures meet. And these cultures, when they do meet, they often clash. Very often they communicate, and very often they possibly even change or even adapt to one another. So if you pause to think about it, if you were part of a culture, you're the blue culture, and you come across the red people, your first thought might be, who are these people? Maybe they look differently than you. Maybe they talk differently than you. They act differently, they cook differently, and so on. So you're wondering who these people are. You might be startled, but you're definitely curious about what they are. Now, Pratt takes us a step further, and she says that there's a power indifference or a power shift very often between these two cultures, that one is more powerful than the other. Pardon my drawing here, right? I'm going to represent this by stronger muscles. One side is more powerful than the other. And so if you think about, historically, the term she uses is asymmetrical power relationships. And where have we seen these in the past? We've seen them with slavery. We've seen them with colonialism. If you're not familiar with that term, this is a term referring to when England was kind of spreading themselves around the world in India and for example, a number of other places too. Another place we see this is with Christopher Columbus. So if we take the Columbus example and we think about when Columbus came over to the New World, he saw new people that were certainly different than them. They talked differently, they acted differently, but he initially, of course, didn't know what to make of these people. And the difference is that Columbus had more power. Again, here I'm using muscles, but essentially he had gunpowder. And when you have gunpowder and the other people don't, then naturally the power shifts toward your direction. Now, why is this important? Pratt is interested in questions of representation. What does Columbus do? He goes back to what we might call the old world, to Europe, and he reports that these people are savages. And so if we're in Europe, it's very easy to make assumptions about the people in the New World because they can't represent themselves. So what we're doing in the old world is we're relying on Columbus's description of the people in the New World without them having a say. So if you think about the people in the New World, or any group of people, if you're not allowed to represent yourselves, then another group, another more powerful group is allowed to represent yourself for other people. Now, what they say sometimes isn't always true. For example, they might go back to the old world and say that maybe they're unethical because they dress much more revealing than people did in Europe. Or you might go back to the New World and say, that they're unrefined or they don't have an economy, all of which we know is not true, but was different. But they weren't allowed to represent themselves. And when we're allowed to represent ourselves, Pratt uses this phrase, autoethnographic texts. And this is essentially how we write about ourselves. And by ourselves here, I mean how we write about our own cultures. And so with the contact zones, again, to summarize, to places of conflict, there's usually a power imbalance. And that power imbalance results in questions of representation and describing, or the ability or the lack of ability to describe yourself. And that's Mary Louise Pratt's contact zones in a nutshell.